How's it going, everyone? Today I have a slightly different video for you. We're going to be talking a bit about Halo Reach and Noble Team in particular, and how they were actually hunted down as revenge for killing a sect of the Covenant's leader. Without further ado, relax back, I've got this, we'll take it from here. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. There's a few sections where Noble Team meet this sect. Alright, I will explain as we go through. So we start in Visigrad. Visigrad, if you've played Halo Reach, Visigrad was the area that you first encounter as Noble 6 when you join Noble Team. So at the relay station, Noble actually encounters Zealot elites, and one actually gets away, who's their field marshal, specifically a Zealot field marshal. Now this elite was leading a team of Zealots, and Halsey believes it's almost always just Zealots that hunt artifact data. So it's fairly safe to say that this field marshal was also a Zealot. Now on the mission Long Night of Solace, where the Supercarrier for the Covenant reveals itself, it is the only Supercarrier on Reach. So all Covenant forces on this side of Reach where we're fighting in the game are based out of this Supercarrier, which is called Long Night of Solace. If you didn't know, that wasn't just the level name, that was the name of the Supercarrier. Now, it's safe to say that all Zealots in Reach are from this Supercarrier because of what we said. Long Night of Solace is home to the Devoted Sentries, which are a sect of elite Zealots. Now, all Zealots currently on Reach are Devoted Sentries. The shipmaster of the Long Night of Solace is an elite called Barutamee. He's an elite that cares more about Forerunner artifacts and religion than the Covenant's war. He's also the leader of the Devoted Sentries, not just militarily, but religiously as well. Now Ro is killed by the slip space drive being activated by George. If you don't remember, George actually sacrifices himself because we can't remotely detonate the slip space drive. He throws you out of the craft that you're on, that you dock with in the Pelican, and then you basically end up falling back down to Reach. Now with the Covenant completely mopping up the UNSC, it's fair to say that their intel department was fairly top notch. Now they knew anything and everything about the UNSC forces on Reach. For example, they knew that there were only 3 Spartan fire teams on Reach, so I think the Covenant and the Devoted Sentries knew who did it, and by it I mean exploding the Long Night of Solace. Between their intel and the fact there's only 3 fire teams, it was fairly obvious which team was doing the job, in this case Noble. Now, I think they knew who killed their leader and destroyed their carrier, and possibly every artifact they've ever collected. Now let's move over to New Alexandria. Before Noble 6 heads back to Oni HQ, Kat says she's been tracked and is under attack. This is when New Alexandria gets glassed. Now when 6 arrives and we go through the cutscene, Covenant forces retreat very fast because they know there's an imminent glassing about to happen. The glassing then happens and Noble runs for a fallout shelter, and as we all know, Kat is killed by a sniper. Okay, now why was the sniper there? He was waiting in a phantom, he was looking through a destroyed building. The simple answer to the question is, they knew Noble would go there. A glassing is actively happening, and all the other Covenant forces have left the area in a huge hurry, rightly so. That phantom shouldn't be there, stopped and waiting. But it was. The Covenant knew the layout of the city well enough to seize it in a couple of days. They choked it out with keenly placed jammers, and they focused on key buildings and strongholds and other areas of importance. It's not out of the question that they knew that the nearest fallout shelter to one of the most important military buildings in the whole city was where Noble Team were going for. Now Kat, as we said earlier, she says she was tracked, and when the glassing goes off, the Covenant knew where Noble Team would go, and the Covenant basically waited for Noble. But why? Well, it's a good question. Why track them down, stay near a glassing and try to kill one of them when they run for a shelter? The answer is because it wasn't just any Covenant phantom. The sniper was a Zealot field marshal. This ties up with the Devoted Sentries, and it makes him an incredibly angry Devoted Sentry Zealot Field Marshal. The same Field Marshal back at Visigrad Relay that we initially encountered. Effectively, they were hunting and tracking Noble for revenge to what they did to the Long Night of Solace. And in this case, they just got one. Now the next encounter doesn't come until the very end of the game, at the dry docks of the Pillar of Autumn. Remember, when Visigrad Relay was attacked, 2 Zealots and a Zealot Field Marshal were there, 3 in total, which is what Halsey and Oni believed to be their standard artifact retrieval team, 3. But at the Pillar of Autumn, there's 7. When you deliver Cortana to Keys and a Phantom drops Zealots at the Mac gun and kills Emil, what were they there for? The answer is you guys, Noble Team. The Covenant has been using Brutes for hardpoint assaults and asset destruction on Reach. Brutes tried to hold that landing pad. When you first arrived at that dry dock, there were Brutes all over it, and across the Mac gun as well. And it should have been more Brutes that were dropped in to reinforce the area. But it wasn't. It was Zealots. In this case, Devoted Sentries, and with a total of 7 dropping in, which were 6 Zealots and a Field Marshal, it wasn't for any artifact, and Zealots don't usually concern themselves with strictly military operations. They show up to finish off the Spartans who killed their leader and destroyed their home, the Long Night of Solace. And when you take down the Zealot Field Marshal, it's the same one that you met at Visigrad and the same one that killed Kat. Field Marshals, remember, are the highest combat rank of the elites, and Zealots, there's most likely one, and even if there was more, I seriously doubt you encounter multiple through that shorter time span. Lastly, when we get to the level of Lone Wolf, the very last level where Noble 6 is all alone, and he becomes MIA, on the cutscene at the end, it was yet another Zealot who did it, who made him MIA, or in this case we should say KIA, who knows. That's a whole other video on its own. Anyway, the Zealot goes for the sword kill, despite several other elites using plasma weapons. It's very obvious that in this case the Zealot thinks it's personal, there's no doubt about it. In summary, Noble Team blew up a supercarrier, killed a religious leader, and then the religious sect that the leader was leading got mad and hunted them down. The same Field Marshal you initially meet, and the one that kills Kat, is the one you kill at the end. 6 Noble Team Spartans, 5 KIA, 3 of them by Zealots. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, please click subscribe, click like, and leave a comment. What do you think? What's the what would you rate this theory out of 10? I think I'm fairly close. I think it works fairly well. From what I've seen, from what I've read and understood of what's going on with all the lore surrounding Reach, I think this is actually really viable. But you tell me. And as always, in the meantime, until the next video, happy gaming.